Planning and executing a narrative commercial that is supposed to tell a heartwarming story is one of the biggest challenges I have faced as a cinematographer. We have an ongoing relationship with the Toronto Waterfront Marathon, and this year we wanted to create an intentional campaign video that followed a story that felt real. In this video, I'm going to show you my pre-production and production process and show you exactly how we shot this narrative commercial. To answer that question, we have to look at how our relationship with this client started. Two of the members of Tenfold are very active in the running space, and through years of knowing people and building relationships as well as being aware of everyone's careers, this just lined up and made sense. And with those relationships, someone got us in contact with a marketing team that runs the Toronto Waterfront Marathon. The year prior to this, we did a whole documentary series following different runners leading up to the marathon. Because we already built a relationship based on the work that we did last year, they are very open to new ideas and what we could really bring to this campaign. We didn't want to just create another content series. The directors sold the idea of a narrative piece following a real story. A story that was relatable and can stir up emotions in the viewer. And this is the type of work that I'm most excited about to create, and the main reason I really got into this whole filmmaking space. With an idea fleshed out and the project sold, it was time to move on to the pre-production process and establishing a general look and feel for the project. This is one of my favorite processes in the pre-production stage of any project because it allows me to visualize what the project will look and feel like. And this was a big project for me because this is the first time I was shooting a narrative commercial that relied on story. This meant I had to do a ton of research in reference to camera movements, lighting, lens selection, and so much more. In this process, I generally like to ask the directors for 2 to 3 references that match the aesthetic of the project. From there, I like to find 2 to 3 references of my own that complement the originals that were sent. A big question that you might have, and questions I've had for years, is where do you exactly begin in this look and feel process? And a tool that I use all the time for this process is FrameSet. FrameSet is a collection of commercials, movies, and music videos that is designed to inspire you for your next project. And what I really love about FrameSet is how easy it is to really dial in the references that you were exactly looking for. For this commercial specifically, my process was very simple in establishing a look and feel for the project. In this case, what I usually would do, because this is a commercial as well as narrative, I would really dial it between a movie and a commercial, but for this sake, we're going to be looking at commercials. And then I would look up daughter, and then I would say child. And what I really love about FrameSet is finding similar references that really speak to what you're trying to do. And once I find the category that I'm looking for, I can just easily group these and add these to any folder that I want and really dial in a mood board for the entire piece. And then if I'm looking for something specific, like if I like this project and I want to see more from it, I can easily dive into this even more and find in and really dial in the tone and feel that we're going for. And then if I want to find the video reference, it's linked with Vimeo, and this easily takes me to another page. And this really incorporates the 2 referencing apps I love to use, which is FrameSet and Vimeo. If you guys are interested in using FrameSet for your next project, check out in the link in the description to find out more. With a look and feel established, we can start planning on how we're going to execute this project. Planning something like this can seem very out of reach and daunting. The reality is, I felt the same way when planning this project, especially working with the directors. There are so many things to consider, such as locations, talent casting, camera selection, art direction, and so much more. As I was the director of photography for this project, I'm going to focus on the planning for the cinematography side of things. So this includes shot listing, location scouting, pre-visualization, crew, and gear selection. Once the creative was locked and a producer was looped in, this is where I came in as a cinematographer to shot list the project. The directors and I had multiple sessions where we went through the actions of the talent and story to have a corresponding scene to shoot. Now, this commercial was narrative, but it still had some montage aspects, especially in the middle of the piece. This allowed the directors and I to plan scenes that were relevant to the story, but could sit in multiple places in the edit. To easily explain this, we're going to break up the commercial into segments and really dive into how you can tell a story as a cinematographer. We're going to start off with the opener, which introduces our characters, the theme of the narrative, and setting. So this is introducing the daughters and father figure in the beginning of the piece. Then we have some sort of incident. This is the point of the story where the daughter realizes the hard work that the dad is putting in. Then we have a reaction to the incident, and this is the section of the montage where the daughter wants to do something special for the dad. And then we can move on to the climax and then the conclusion of the final piece. For editing purposes, we knew that the opener, incident, climax, and ending were the main drivers of the story and had to be dialed in because of how the edit would play out. But for the reaction of the incident, this was much more easier to plan because this would sit in that montage realm where we could jumble a bunch of scenes together. Our shot listing process consists of playing out the entire commercial shot by shot on an Excel spreadsheet. After we do that, we'd readjust the shot on how it makes sense to shoot it on the day. This is due to location, transport, talent availability, and so many other factors. If you guys are interested in a shot listing video specifically, please let us know in the comments below. During the location scouting process, I like to take pictures of each of the rooms that I will be shooting in, as well as use my favorite filmmaking applications, which are Sunseeker and CADRage. Sunseeker lets me see where the sun will be during the entirety of the day, and CADRage lets me use different cameras and focal lengths that I want to shoot on just using my phone. In this project specifically, I mainly use CADRage in the location scouting process because a lot of these rooms I would be relighting myself. If we look at camera selection, the directors really wanted the Hollywood or movie look, but with a commercial twist. I chose the ARRI Mini LF paired with the Zeiss Supreme Primes for this project because it was a camera and lens combination I knew that would hit the commercial look exactly. The movie look is associated with lighting as well as focal lengths that we would use. So this is something that would happen on the day specifically. I don't want to discourage you in terms of looking at this project and looking at the camera specifically we shot this on. I could really shoot this project on any camera that we own, and we really wanted to push the look, and that's why exactly we chose this camera specifically. One important thing with narrative style projects is that they are generally shot on long lenses. So for this project, I chose the 35, 50, 85, and 135mm, primarily using the last three of these focal lengths. This is something I learned from experience, doing a bunch of research, as well as having a conversation with the directors. They really wanted to feel a fly on the wall and not necessarily being in the action, but watching the action. For camera support, we used a Satchler Video 20 tripod, a Ronin 2, and a rickshaw. For lighting, we rented out a 1-ton G&E package as well as our own personal kit. For small narrative projects like this one, I knew that this was going to be more than enough. For a lot of these narrative projects where it's supposed to feel natural, I'm generally using tube lights as well as small panel fixtures and some point source lights just to live the ambience of the room. For this project specifically, if we look at the number of lights, I was probably only using 5 per scene. And these were the same lights I was using through the entire project. With so many pieces in play, it was time to execute on everything that we planned on. The first day of this production was intended to be more of a relaxed day, as it was mainly a day for the house to be decked with art, getting comfortable with the actors, and shooting 2 of the 9 scenes needed for the commercial. I learned one of the most important lessons on this day when it comes to picking up gear from rental houses. Always check that everything works before you leave. I know this may seem simple, but we picked up the camera the morning and headed to the location as we were shooting on the same day. As soon as we got to the location and built the camera, it wouldn't turn on. Now at this point, we had 2 options. Contact the rental house and get another camera, or shoot with the in-house cameras that we have, which was the red Komodo. We really wanted to shoot this project on the LF and decided to push the day back and get in contact with the rental house. At the same time this was done, we set up the red to shoot the first scene, as I would have a reference at least to light things. We were on a major time crunch here, and it was a balancing act of shooting the scene on the red Komodo or waiting for the camera and pushing things back so everything looked consistent. Luckily, the rental house accommodated us with the camera and extra batteries for the faulty unit, and it only put us 30 minutes behind schedule. I am 100% admitting to this being my fault for not checking the camera before I headed out, and the main problem was a faulty gold mount to V-mount plate that we ordered for the camera. With that hiccup out of the way, we got underway with shooting some of the interactions between the father and his 2 daughters. I was working with a crew that I was very familiar with, so this really helped us get back on track. In addition to this, the directors and I had so many meetings prior to this project that we knew everything that we needed to capture. We were a well-oiled machine, and the extensive pre-production process helped this greatly. This allowed us to make up for lost time and wrapped only 30 minutes behind schedule on the first day. Now, day 2 of this production was the heavy lifting for the entire project and relied on shooting scenes day for night at sunset as well as nighttime. Day 1 helped us a lot, as it was the day where the art department dressed the entire house, so we only had to do minor fixes when we were physically in the room shooting the scenes. Day 2 started with the first day for night scene that I've ever lit, and I was very proud of what we were able to achieve. This was one of my favorite scenes of the entire piece, as all the planning as well as research we did finally paid off. From here, we moved into multiple different scenes inside the house that belong to the montage portion of the commercial. This is the point where I really get excited about the production process of any project that I'm involved in. The team is comfortable, the directors and crew are excited about all the shots that we are taking, and there's a general happiness and buzz in the air. We finished off the day with the last exterior night shot of the piece, and that was a wrap for the crew for day 2. But definitely not for the Tenfold team. This is the reality of running your own productions rather than getting hired specifically as a director of photography. Generally, I'm covering a lot of roles that a DOP wouldn't cover regularly. For this project specifically, this was rigging and camera prep for the next day, which involved putting the camera on a Ronin 2 as well as a rickshaw. Wrapping at 9 p.m. and having a 5:30 a.m. call time the next day, it was a race against time to get everything we needed in order. That night, I prepped the rickshaw dolly on the Ronin 2 with the Mini LF. I used my Tilta Hydra arm as the camera arm, in this case because I knew that this setup wouldn't be going on a car rig. It was what we had, and I did a lot of testing beforehand, and I knew it would work for the shots that we were trying to do. With the camera prepped and the rigging tested, it was finally time to move on to the last day of production. With minimal sleep and prepping the camera in the dark, the crew was ready to execute on the finale of this commercial. Making a commercial or any project feel real is always dependent on how much work you put into it. As this was the ending of the piece, we had to make it feel as real as possible. To do this, we needed to make the viewer feel like an actual marathon was taking place. Luckily, we are pretty connected in the running space, and at the time we were shooting this, there was a 10-kilometer running event being hosted by the client of this project. This meant we could use the runners we knew in the space as runners for the marathon, as well as people cheering in the sidelines. The real reason why commercials and movies feel so real is because of all the planning that goes into shooting one of these projects. I have learned and matured as a cinematographer that I'd rather have a shot that is true to the story than being technically right on a lensing, camera, or lighting perspective. With the sun starting to rise and everyone in their position, we executed on everything that we planned on. With so many variables in play, we only had one shot to get the wide of the scene right. From there, we shot the scene backwards and got all the intercuts that were used to tell the story. This was easier to do as we were able to use crew members' hands as well as bodies and didn't have to take up any other people's time. We moved on to the only moving running shot of the piece, and the rickshaw setup that we worked so hard on worked perfectly for what we needed. And that was a wrap on this commercial, and my personal first narrative commercial as a director of photography. So what did I learn from shooting a commercial like this? The first obvious thing I learned was always check your gear before you leave any rental house. But the main reason I learned from this project was planning and research is the most important part of any project. There's so many things that could have went wrong in this project, but they all went right because there was so much work done in the pre-production process. We knew if shots would work, the importance of actor blocking in specific scenes, where scenes would sit in the edit, and keeping lighting continuity in mind. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more detailed breakdowns on how we execute on our projects, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video.